Good morning again. I'd like to invite our speakers up, our panelists up first. Chris Wenneman is Director of Software Development at Amazon Alexa. We have Philip Brabeck, Vice President of Product Management at Audi. We have Brian Ryder, Head of AutoMobility at Clink, and Tao Liang, Director of Machine Learning at NIO. Welcome, guys.
Thank you. Everybody.
You know, as we move toward shared mobility and autonomous driving, really the user experience in the vehicle becomes even more important, right? Even if we're not driving our own car, we want the car to know us, we want it to understand us, we want it to feel personalized, and we want it to anticipate our needs and make our lives easier. AI technology can certainly help with that. But there's also a lot of challenges and difficulties. So we're going to dive into some of these issues today. Let's talk first, though, sort of a hard truth, right? Raise your hand if you've had a fight with your car in the last week. Right? The car doesn't always understand what we're asking. It misunderstands the words. It gives us the wrong address or the wrong instructions. And so there's a little bit of frustration to this point with voice technology in the car. And Philip, I wanted to ask you why that is. Is it a technical limitation that we've had in the auto industry up to this point?
Yeah, and I would say, first of all, good morning, everyone. Glad to be here. Of course, it's a challenge that we've obviously tackled over many years, we've kind of evolved from being really excited and pushing a button and saying one number or one letter in the car recognizing what we just said. And of course, the interior in itself is a quite complex environment. Cars moving, there's noises going on, there's a lot of stuff going on. So of course, we had to try to work through that over the years. And of course, we've evolved, now you're able to be a lot more conversational inside the vehicle. The vehicle is able to recognize a myriad of things that you say. We actually don't just rely on the technology that's inside the vehicle, but also off-board. That means we go to a cloud-based system that is able to recognize far more and has far more computing power to be able to assist us in that. So it's just been an evolution, and I think from a kind of a user perspective, we all obviously dream of the idea that the car will kind of do whatever we're thinking or whatever's pretty much on tip of our tongue, and so that's kind of where we're headed. And I would say we've definitely evolved over the years quite far.
Well, Chris, I wanted to talk to you about Alexa because I think most people are familiar with the digital assistant in their home, whether they have one or not. They've certainly seen the marketing of Alexa. How does a cloud-based system change what's possible in the automobile?
Sure. First, good morning. It's great to be here. This was one of the great things with Alexa being a cloud-based system is that she gets smarter every day. One of the challenges with onboard systems is updating them, right? Both the ASR models as well as NLU models as well as the domains to make the assistant more intelligent. With the cloud-based Alexa, we're able to deploy continuously, and every day we're able to make Alexa smarter. And so we can give customers new features, new functions, new ways to interact. We can also then incorporate advanced machine learning and new language models so that she can understand more, she can understand different question shapes, so different customers can ask her for the same things in different ways, and she can understand that and provide those features and help simplify customers' lives.
Well, is it all about the computing power? I mean, essentially, is that what it is?
Yep, it all runs on AWS, and so we're able to leverage a massive amount of computing power for both the machine learning as well as then the real-time request processing.
But Brian, let me ask you, so I think about, everything's in the cloud, but we also, we have issues about connectivity sometimes, and we want to know that the car will respond quickly when we need it to. So how do you balance what's on the car and what's in the cloud?
Yeah, for sure. And to kind of add on top of the first point, the technology has changed drastically. So the legacy approach to NLU was keyword based, where it was trained on synonyms or an ontology. Over the last 5 years, what we saw was deep learning drastically changing this approach. So now we have a very inherently resilient model that can actually oversee the mistakes of the automatic speech recognition. So in the car, you have a lot of noise, so like the text-to-speech part might pick up the words wrong. But now that we're moving to a deep learning model, we're actually training it more like the human brain. So we're flushing data over that system to learn the patterns, so that even if the query comes through a little wrong, it's still able to process it correctly. Now, to add to that point about embedded versus over the cloud, experience is super important in this field. I know that what we see right now is users using systems like this and then they drop off immediately. They try a new skill and they don't come back to it. Experience to me is kind of this point that comes to latency. When the smartphones first came out, like the BlackBerry with the keyboard, and it had all the email and had an app for the web, it had all the functions and features that we needed in a phone. But then when the iPhone came out, it created this like gap in experience that made the whole thing infatuating. And that's kind of the stage that we're at in voice right now. Is right now we're just trying to figure out, can we get the damn thing to work? And now that we're getting to like, can we make the experience to where it's something that actually drives the purchase of the vehicle because it has some personality? And one of those things is latency. The system needs to respond very quickly, kind of like the human nervous system. Our body requires a feedback loop, and if we have a slow latency, then that's a huge problem in the experience, and part of that is embedding some of this technology in the car. The challenge with automotive is obviously you guys don't want to put GPUs in every car because it becomes a cost prohibitive thing. So it is a balance, and that's going to be on the OEMs to decide how much computing power they want in the car, and then that's where we drive the AI experience in the car based on that.
Joanne, if I may add just a couple of things to that, because a couple of interesting points from my side. Number one, I think smartphones did provide a completely different context to the automotive user, just because of the change in experience and the change in, but it also allowed us to sort of give visibility to something. So for example, loss of connectivity is kind of accepted these days because if something happens, the user typically understands that there is a loss of connectivity and what that means, and they probably expect it's going to come back soon. And that's been actually happening. The coverage has been so so massive and so vast that we haven't seen the type of handoff issues as much as we would, let's say, 5 or 10 years ago. So on one hand, it's getting much better as far as coverage, but then on the other, we also see that the user is somehow able to understand that context.
Mm-hmm. Tao, I wanted to get you in this conversation. NIO is a newish car company. You market yourselves as a lifestyle company. Tell us about Nomi, because I don't know that everyone here knows what Nomi is.
Sure, yeah. Lifestyle is the key word. At NIO, we start with the user experience. We start with what's ideal for the car owner. One of which, of course, is having some kind of connection with your car. So we start with the goal of creating an emotional connection between the owner and the car, or the passengers in the car. So we have actually a physical robot head inside the car called Nomi. Nomi is a combination of all of the components Chris, Philip, and Brian mentioned, which is basically it's an enormous backend powered by the cloud and a very powerful computer inside the car, and then the neural networks and the connectivity that chains it all together. With this, we believe with this physical form, it's the best way to start an immediate connection between the user and the device.
I wish we had a picture of it on the screen. It's a little ball, would you say?
Yes.
It sits on the dashboard. It's got eyes, but it's not like a robot on the dashboard. Yes. Did you decide that on purpose? Like, were you worried about it being too much personality?
Yes. A big challenge of Nomi is actually getting it just right. Not too intelligent and not under, basically, from the emotional perspective, under the user's expectations. And as those of us in AI, and especially voice AI, we all know it's very important to get it at the exactly the right level, because if you project, the technology is not quite all the way there in terms of a fully conversational engine like what we're having today. So basically, you have to project just the right level so that the user have the right expectations. In some way, it's a relative thing. You just have to get it right.
Yeah, and I would, to add to that, everybody should go look on YouTube this Nomi experience, because it is amazing. Like, it's one of those things that you see and you're like, kind of get goosebumps, and it's amazing that you guys are kind of leading that way. So, sure.
Well, and there's very much a personality to that. I don't know about the rest of you. A lot of people name their cars. I have a Ford Escape. It's called Foduck. I don't know why. My husband named it that. We used to have a minivan named Chad. So every car has a name, many people anyways. How do you see personality working into our car? Any of you jump in on that?
Yeah, I would say I always had this friend that told me, like, looks get me to come, but personality gets me to stay. So I think that personality to anything, especially to a brand, is very important. Like, you have an opportunity to actually get somebody to engage with your brand on a personal level. You have an opportunity to, every time that person gets in their car, to actually engage with them. And the thing with personality, it's very important, is it has to be proactive. Right now, a lot of virtual assistants are like question answers. You're engaging it, it's engaging you, which it very limits like the amount of personality. Like, if you think a human being, like human beings that only interact with you when you interact with them, they don't have very much personality. So we have to figure out a way to make these, very proactive and to your point, like interactive and proactive in a way that's not annoying, but also that's very personal. Like, this is going to be, if you think about it, it's not just going to be the assistant for your car, it's going to be an assistant for that brand. And that branded assistant that you buy, whatever OEM it is, it's going to follow you around to every car. I hope it does. Otherwise, what we're going to have is people like crying when they leave their car because they fall in love with their assistant. So I think this is going to be a great path forward. What we're going to see here with virtual conversational assistants in your car. Anything that, I think it was Larry Page said this, anything that you do twice a day, like brushing your teeth, is going to have a great impact on consumers' lives. This conversational assistant is going to be something like that for every car. And that's about it. Yeah.
Well, Philip, you are at an OEM, a big one, well-known, Audi, and so you can kind of talk about how other OEMs feel about the idea of buying it or building it. So it seems to me that a lot of car makers want to control that branded experience inside the vehicle. But then you have something as smooth and robust as Alexa, which is not an Audi brand. So talk about how you would wrestle with all of that.
I think ultimately it's in a smart combination of things. And for us, the consumer's always in the forefront, and we have to understand what customers want and what is ultimately value add in a driving environment. And we believe that we obviously have a certain piece of that experience that we know a lot about, that we understand, and where we really provide value to the consumer. At the same time, we obviously need smart partnerships to bringing things that the consumer is expecting. So Alexa being one, and we were one of the first to integrate it in our new all-electric Audi e-tron. Again, it's the same idea of having just the right amount of that brand experience that Brian touched on, but at the same time, being able to integrate the things that people are familiar with and that they expect as part of their everyday life. And that sort of organic formula, we believe, is really the answer.
And I think from Alexa's point of view, we want customers to have choice, right? We want them to be able to interact with whichever assistant is going to be able to fulfill the request, right? We don't want dead ends, right? And so part of like our voice interoperability initiative is to enable those types of handoff scenarios so that when there are multiple assistants present, they actually know about each other, and in safe, secure, and privacy-honoring ways, we can actually be able to have those assistants interopt with each other and help the customer get to their final goal of whatever they're trying to accomplish.
Well, I mean, I think that's a key point because there's so many voices in the car now. It's, you know, I start to hear voices when I'm driving. I mean, you want it, from the consumer standpoint, you just want it to work, right? We want it to be easy. We want the car to do what we ask, understand what we mean. I guess I'm just having trouble understanding how that gets all ironed out smoothly in the car. Can you assure me that would really happen?
Absolutely. It is a very challenging problem, but there's a lot of opportunity then for customers to be able to simplify that experience. And you see some of our first forays in this with things like the Cortana assistant and how Alexa can summon Cortana and vice versa, or on the Facebook portal and how a customer can speak to the device with Hey Portal or speak to Alexa. Or in the Audi e-tron, which I do own and love, where you can then use the wake word with Alexa to be able to address her specifically. But it is a hard problem to then figure out how to semantically identify which assistant is most appropriately at the right time, and then again, in a way that protects the customer's privacy so that they know what's happening with the data as to which assistant is actually going to process the request and fulfill that request. It's still day one.
Right.
With our voice interoperability initiative, but we're excited about the companies that we have as part of that that are going to help us solve that problem.
And who are some of the companies?
So BMW, Harman, Bose, Sonos, just to name a few, that are working with us to devise ways that we can hand off between assistants and have them work smoothly so that it is a very natural, very elegant customer experience.
Okay. Tao, what's at stake here? Why are all these companies trying to get into this AI in the car? Tell us, is it just the consumer data? Help us understand that.
My personal perspective is the vehicle is the next mobile device. Basically, you know, as your smartphone evolved in the last 10 years, it has, you know, basically transformed our lives, right? The vehicle is actually the next platform for such kind of transformation. You know, it could be, you know, as simple as continuing the current trends, as well as autonomous driving and beyond. So that's why it's a very big space. It's bigger than the mobile phones. So, you know, all of us are trying to be a part of that.
Are there privacy concerns?
There's certainly privacy concerns, very much so, you know, similar to your privacy concerns with your smartphones, right? That's why I believe this notion of having multiple assistants is actually not a bad thing, because the Alexas, we trust it's in the cloud and we know it's going to protect our data. For Nomi, we exist inside your car. It's the car that you own, right? So you tend to trust that. Just as the way we deal with multiple people here, we have the capacity to deal with multiple assistants.
Yeah, and to add on to that, obviously we're moving in automotive to a voice-first interaction. Touch is you know, eventually going to go away, especially for safety reasons and things like that. But in regards to voice and voice data, like what we have at our fingertips with voice information is so much more valuable data-wise than any other types of data that you get from digital channels. You know how valuable the click data is. where users are going. The click data kind of expresses someone's intent, but not to the degree that conversational assistants are able to understand your intent. They'll know exactly what you want, when you want it, and once you get to that point where these things turn into actual conversations, they'll know that if you're looking at that Cartier love bracelet online, they can actually have a conversation with you, like, are you actually going to buy this, or are you dreaming about this? So like, you have this ability to dive into all this data. Now the problem is that because we have this data that's super valuable, now we're trusting a lot of entities to make sure that they take care of that data. So the thing that we have to also keep in mind, though, is that this data is going to be used to actually make our lives easier, right? When we bring conversation to the vehicle, what we're creating is a new road of commerce. Imagine as if you had this like road going through this town with a bunch of shops. Conversational AI in the car is actually creating a highway that players have to kind of join in to be a part of. Imagine all the purchasing decisions that you make while you're sitting in your car. You're always sitting in your car like, I'm hungry, I'm going to go to Chick-fil-A. So like you're trying to order, you don't want to wait in line anymore. Like that's ridiculous. There's technology now, and this technology will be available in the car to where you can do your entire food ordering just using your voice, and you're getting there, and it's all ready for you. So what we have is actually something that's going to dramatically impact the economy, and this goes to the bigger question of how is AI going to impact the economy, and this is one of those kind of examples of how that's going to happen.
But back to privacy, privacy is a top priority for us at Amazon. We're very lucky that customers trust us with sensitive data. And customer trust is paramount. It's very hard to earn, and it's very easy to lose. And so we've done a lot to try to put the controls in the hands of the customer. So you can do things like, say, Alexa, delete what I just said. Right? And she can actually then erase the last utterance. You can go into the Alexa app and you can see the history of your interactions, and you can delete data from there. You can also set up automatic deletion rules where we'll automatically delete your data every 3 or 18 months. So putting the control in the hands of the customer, being very clear to the customer about what data is being collected, when that data is being collected, how that data is being used, and giving them the fidelity of the control over that data is very important to us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I would say, just to add to that, I think it's sort of a price of entry. You have to obviously be committed to data security and to privacy, and we most certainly are. And what we are seeing is that often, customers are opting in, and they are looking at ways that technology can improve their lives, and they understand that there is a trade-off, but they very often go for that trade-off because they see the benefit.
Well, now I'd like to go a little bit into the future, right, and talk about how AI is going to work in a shared autonomous world. Any one of you, just give me a vision of what you see in your crystal ball 10, 15, 20 years. I'm sorry, go Tao.
I can go first. I think the world of your living room and your vehicle, your car, will overlap.
Awesome.
I think they're coming together today. In the next 10 years, they'll become almost one. Alexa understands your house very well, understands your living room really well. However, this notion of IoT or smart home is taking a long time to take place. Your car is actually a very smart car. In many cases, it can unlock your doors automatically, right? Open the trunk. It can do a lot of things automatically. It's ideal smart home, basically. In the next 10 years, as these two spaces overlap, especially when the vehicle starts driving itself, what are you going to do? So I think you're going to very much do what you do in your living room. You want to entertain yourself, you want to become productive, and you want to become very peaceful inside the car. The assistant can actually help you bridge these two worlds and bring your Alexa knowledge into the vehicle context. So when you say open the door, open the window, your car knows which door, which window to open for you. For our the Neo ES6, we actually have a massage chair. When you say, hey, turn on massage, it actually turns on massage in the right chair.
And it knows that because it knows where you're sitting?
Yes.
I see. Okay. Good.
I'll jump
Philip.
in with the autonomous example. You know, we've been committed to really staying at the forefront and pushing the limits on autonomous. And the benefit that you look at with AI is absolutely breathtaking. I mean, if you look at very simple examples, so imagine you have a curve that you as a driver are going to take certain way in order to come out of it safely. And maybe one time you make a mistake. And that system is able to learn and understand that mistake, and maybe 20 other drivers who go after you approach that curve in a different way. All of a sudden, you have a knowledge of a massive amount of people that you are bringing into that experience, and you can make that exponentially better, so that one day we have a completely different driving environment that is essentially headed into an accident-free type of environment, where we can obviously, on one hand, avoid things, on the other, benefit from knowledge and skills of massive amount of drivers. And that kind of power is definitely coming to the vehicle, and we will be able to take advantage. So that benefit is absolutely massive, and I'm not sure today we can fully comprehend just how powerful that is.
Yeah, I'll add to that real quick. With autonomous vehicles, one of the biggest things is going to be a sense of peace. So you get into an Uber or to a Lyft, you can talk to a person, you can ask questions, you can have the sense of where I'm going, how I'm getting there. When you get into an autonomous car, especially as we get consumers into trusting autonomous vehicles for the first time, like they're going to need some sort of conversational assistant to walk them through this experience, to answer questions for them, to give them a sense of peace and security, to let them know where they're going and how they're going to get there. And they're going to need multiple ways to interact with these autonomous cars. So I feel like it's going to be a huge impact in terms of the overall customer experience. And in an autonomous vehicle, this will be the main mode of interacting with that system. And because of the fact that we'll be able to adjust the personalities and stuff like that, you can drive the whole intelligent experience with autonomous driving.
Yeah, I think it's hard to imagine a future where voice is not one of the primary ways that we interact with the environment around us, right? Humans interact with our voice all the time, right? That's how we communicate. And as these voice assistants get smarter and improve and become more natural, become more integrated, I think it'll be exciting to see how they can simplify our lives, and how you can then, from, as Tao said, from the home into the car, into the workplace, be able to interact with an assistant, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. But it's still day one. We're still very early in this journey.
Well, I'm curious in a shared autonomous world, right? So I'm getting on a shuttle bus with 5 other people who all have their own digital assistant. How does that get arbitrated in a shared experience? Have you thought that through yet?
Yeah, so I could say that we obviously have some projects that we'll be unveiling at CES that touch onto this topic. So one of the biggest things, obviously, is you're going to have multiple microphones in the car that can pick up like directionally where the person is that's speaking. So many people can interact with these virtual assistants at a time. The thing with shared driving is you need to be able to quickly identify the person when they get into the autonomous vehicle, and you want to be able to have a personalization service around that. One of the huge opportunities in the market right now for those entrepreneurs is a personalization service that goes hand in hand with these conversational agents to keep track of that person's entire conversation throughout the history of their experience with that brand, and then use that to drive not only the conversation, but also the commerce aspect of it, for sure.
Sounds interesting.
And we're working on some of these things now with Alexa. We have the ability that you can actually go to a friend's house and ask Alexa to play my playlist, and she can then use speaker identification to know who you are. You can use then your phone number, and she'll send a notification to your Alexa app, and you can enable your Alexa on your friend's speaker and then play your music in your friend's house. And I could see that being part of that shared mobility world as well.
That's awesome.
So is it all tied to our smartphone? Basically, that is our identifier, and if we're in a shared car or we're in our friend's home, that's how they know that it's me?
For that feature, that's the way that we did that. My crystal ball is a little murky this morning, so I'm
We're
not
not
sure
all
what
gonna
that'll
have
be in the future.
Chips embedded in us, right? That'll know us.
Not yet.
But again, maybe just to add to that, I think the customer at the end of the day expects that we figure out how to be seamless, all of us, and that we figure out how exactly to bring these different worlds together and how to contextually make them relevant to them. And I think that's really the key to this. It's not about one or another app, but being there at the right time and having the right information so that the consumer can make the right choice. And that's really what we've been focusing on a lot.
Yeah.
I remember maybe 7 years ago, maybe writing a story, Detroit versus Silicon Valley. It was going to be one or the other. But I think that what we see now is everybody's working together. Technology industry, entrepreneurs, established big tech companies, automakers, right? I mean, that is the only way it will happen, right?
Absolutely, and we have to be, like for us, even as a small company, we have to show gratitude towards Amazon for pushing this entire industry and voice forward. Without them, there's no way that we could afford educating everybody in the market. So, really appreciate you guys leading the way. It's super helpful to have everybody working together. Even with our technology and Alexa and Google Assistant, we all work together. And there's not going to be one. It's not going to be one vendor to solve everybody's problems. It's going to be everybody working together to drive this consumer experience and doing it in such a very mindful way, so that because what we do to consumers, it impacts all of our reputation. So we want to make sure that we're working together to create a great experience for everyone.
And it has been great collaborating with the different OEMs, collaborating with Audi to integrate Alexa, collaborating with BMW and with GM. It's been a lot of fun, and it is a merriment of those experiences, right? And I think we have a common interest that we want a wonderful customer experience in the cabin of the vehicle. And so working together to bring that to customers, it has been a fun collaboration.
But I also think of cars as kind of my sanctuary, right? It's the one place I can go where I don't have to talk to anybody. I can just drive. Yes, I still like to drive, and I can put on some tunes or whatever, and I don't have to have a brain following me around. I sort of wonder if we're going too far. What do you guys think about that?
I think you're right, and I think a lot of people do look at that. When we just recently launched the brand new A8, it was a big focus of our launch. Actually, was to talk about how you can relax inside the car, because people are overloaded with information and it's everywhere. And where am I consuming it, and all this business. So I think there is definitely that backlash as well, but that's not what it's about, right? What it's about is having what you need when you need it, how you need it. That's what it's about. It's not about it being interruptive to you or being somehow, bringing information that you don't want. It's that it's ready for you when you need it. And when you don't, we focus on that perfect experience of the interior and the plush seat and the wonderful sound system and all of the things that we built into the car, because you're still spending a lot of time inside your car. So we want to make sure that you can shut it all off and enjoy just the driving experience.
Tao, I want to know about Nomi because I loved it so much. I want to know if you're going to bring it to the United States, because right now it's all in Chinese.
Yes. We started shipping mid last year to exclusively Chinese market. This year we shipped the second model of our car. We do have plans to sell to the rest of the world. As we all know, automotive space is very challenging to get into, to even establish foothold in one market. To get it into multiple markets takes time and effort. We have aspiration to come to the U.S. I want one. I want to buy one myself. I can't wait.
The other thing I was wondering about is what happens to Apple Carplay and Android Auto in this kind of world. I think people are just starting to get that into their vehicles today.
Yeah.
You know, you guys work so far in the future, and you know, people who are buying a car, you know, replacing their 10-year-old car, everything's new to them, and
Yeah.
CarPlay's, you know, the newest thing. So what happens to that in this new world?
Joanne, I think it goes back to the choice topic, right? Ultimately, what we want to do is give the customer as many modes and as many choices as we can. One of the things we've done, just to use an example, is you know, we give you multiple ways of entering information, whether it's with voice, whether it's with handwriting, whether it's with different things. So this is, for me, very similar. There are some that like to have that very familiar environment, and they use that. And there are others, they like to use much more integrated experience that we provide as well. So to us, it's always about having the choice so that the consumer finds ultimately what they prefer as their way of interacting with the vehicle.
You know, we've noticed a huge trend in Android Auto taking off that platform just because of how open it is to allowing multiple vendors and innovation to happen. Obviously, these platforms will exist, and as long as they're open to everybody integrating, I feel like they'll do well no matter what it is, whether it's CarPlay or Android Auto. I know there's an example of, I would say like this is why the Dreamcast failed a long time ago, because it was like a very closed off system that didn't let very many people create video games. So as long as it's an open system, like I feel like it's gonna, the environment is open for anybody to win, and especially because now the automotive release cycles are shortening from 3 to 4 years now to 6 months, thanks to Tesla, you know, pushing this innovative speed to market. So I think we're going to see things changing at a really rapid pace now.
Great. Well, guys, I think we're just about out of time, so I think we could keep going. There's a lot to happen in this field, but thank you very much for your thoughts and insights.
Thank you for having us. Appreciate it.